There was this preacher who went to the bar. I know, it sounds weird. Like you start that off and everybody's like, wait a minute, what? He wasn't drinking. He'd go to the bar. He'd sit at the end of the bar, and he'd sit at the end of the bar, and he'd have his Bible, and he'd have a Coke. And he'd sit at the end of the bar, and he would do his Bible study, and he'd be reading the Bible and studying, and he'd develop sermons, teaching, just reading for his own personal use. And he got to know the bartender because he was in there all the time. And so he struck up a conversation with the bartender, and lo and behold, the bartender's not a believer. And he had conversation after conversation after conversation after conversation with his bartender, and he could not win this bartender over for the life of him. Like, just couldn't do it. Like this guy would not submit to the gospel. 20 years later down the road, a guy walks into the little small town church where this pastor preaches, and he walked in, and the pastor greeted him, and the guy walked up to him, and he says, I just want to thank you for what you said in the bar all those years ago. He goes, it really made a difference in my life. He's like, you don't understand the impact that it had. And he's like, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to tell me about this, because he's like, I don't know who you are. He goes, no, I was the guy that was the assistant to the bartender. He goes, I was listening to every word you said. Sometimes the person that you think you're ministering to isn't the person you're ministering to at all.
Amen.
You don't know who's listening. You don't know who's watching and paying attention. That is why we have to choose to walk this walk every single day. Because you don't know who's listening. You don't know who's watching. Because you might be surprised at who comes to faith because of how you carry yourself as a Christian.